Okay, so we are going to, now I have to switch the screen. Today we are going to talk about the materials and methods section, which is theoretically quite simple, but practically there are nevertheless often some problems coming up. So, okay, I put you guys here. So what is the materials and methods section about? In principle, it must be structured and written in a way that somebody could replicate your study. I mean, this is always the main aim we have in science when we write a paper, that somebody else could replicate it. I mean, that's what we want to do in science, that our study is not a one-time wonder, but it's something that's always true. And when we tell people how we did the study, they can do it, repeat it, and see whether they find the same results or not. And so the materials and methods should always be written in a way that people can repeat the study. For this, it must be in a logical order, which means information by information must be provided that would be needed to replicate it. It should be like a manual or a cooking receipt. So like when you want to bake a cake or do anything like this, you want to have it in the order that you need it. You don't want to have information that you need later at the beginning and information that you need now at the end, but it should be like you really receive, I do this, this, and this, step by step. So for this, what you need is logical empathy, how I call it. You have to bring the information then when the reader not only needs it, but also when he or she expects it. That means when you raise the question in the head of the person reading it. And then the argument, and then sometimes I comment on students' papers and say this information is missing. And then when I read on, I see, okay, 10 lines later, the information comes, but this is too late. If there's information that raises to me the question, yes, but what about body mass, for example, or how did they measure this? Then I want to have the information now. I don't want to look through the materials and methods section whether I find this information anywhere. Just the same, imagine when you're buying some furniture from IKEA or any other shop, you want that they tell you immediately what you have to do now to put it together, not that you search through the entire manual to find the information, how to proceed now, which part do you need now, and how does it look. You want to have it at the moment that you need it. So it's not good enough when the information comes somewhere later, but the reader wants it now if you raise a question. Also very especially important for science is that you should state in the materials and methods clearly the sample size. And you should also state it in a way that one can easily find it. For some people, the sample size is one of the most important points of your study, because if you base your conclusions on 3 or 30 or 300 individuals, it makes a big difference. And some people, they go to the materials and methods and they want to see the sample size. And so it should not be hidden somewhere in the second paragraph, in the middle of the second paragraph of the third section, but it should be, for example, at the beginning of the statistical section, or the beginning of the section where you say that you have been trapping mice or whatsoever, so that the reader can easily find it and doesn't have to read everything. Then often in our kind of studies, the sample size used in the tests is lower than the number of individuals we studied, because maybe some individuals disappeared, some died, some were too small, some were too big. There can be so many reasons, but these reasons must be stated also clearly in the materials and methods section. Especially when you have a complex study, you might have, I don't know, studied 152 males, but for comparison 1, you have only 140 males. For comparison 2, only 132. Then it should be clear and evident to the reader why this is the case. And for this, it's especially for the first version of your materials and methods, often very helpful if you have a table summarizing the sample sizes at the different stages of your study, like at the beginning, for example, I don't know, and Sophie, maybe she trapped 10 male European pond turtles, but she got only from 9 a tissue sample, and from only 8 it replicated when she did the DNA testing for whatever reason. That could be an example, that it becomes evident by clearly looking at it, okay, this is why even though they trapped 10 mails, for this analysis, there were only 8 mails. And this is very important to have this in the first version of your materials and methods. And if you then, by putting it, you have the information clearly available, and you can then maybe clearly put it into the text that for the next version, you might want to delete this table. But similarly, like for the results section, I recommend that you put more information in the first version in more tables than you know you will use in the end, but just for yourself that you can easily find this information. I also made the experience sometimes when I write a paper and I think I can submit it to a nicely highly ranking journal where I am not allowed to have a lot of text, and then they reject it, like it too often happens, and then the next journal allows for more space, and then I'm happy I can go back to a previous version where I have this table in with all the details, because now I can bring more about these details in the next version of the manuscript, that instead to the proceedings I'm submitting to animal behavior or whatsoever. So even for yourself, it might be good to have an early version with all the details outlined that you can look back at it at a later stage. Especially, you have to remember, publishing can take many months, and maybe this will be half a year or even 9 months later before you started writing it and you don't remember everything anymore. Then it's nice that you can go back to this first very detailed version with explicit tables. So that's all about the materials and methods section. The important thing is write it in a way that people can replicate the study, and look for logical empathy. When you write it in a way that somebody expects some information, now then bring the information, and don't expect the reader to wait if it comes on the next page or whatsoever. Anybody has some questions to this part of the manuscript? Okay, then I'm stopping the am I on YouTube? Yes, so I stopped the live screen on YouTube.